What's happening, folks? AnyForty lockdown live stream, week number six. Week number 6. We're about to go down under again. See our guy Ben Brown in Sydney town. See if he's online. I think we seem to be having like some technical difficulties the last few episodes with too many people on board. I think too many people on board don't hold Wi-Fi. So let's get this cracking. Boom, boom, boom. Alright, so you can find Ben. Alright, bear with me, guys. Yes, Ben.
Sorry about that. I think that was me screwing around with the iPad trying to get it on there.
It's weird. Like, yeah, probably the last 2 or 3 of these live streams I've done, it's been just weird with like little technical bugs and issues. Mate,
I was all set with my iPad. It's nice and big, and I was thinking, oh, it's luxury. And then it's like, oh no, this isn't. We're saying can't load and shit like that.
So you on the iPad? You on the iPad now?
Nah, I just gone to the phone. So the phone's working fine. Yeah.
Sick, man. Mate, well, thank you very much for giving up some time on your Tuesday evening, 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Had a good day?
Yeah. Working away. Yeah, because it's night, I've actually cracked a beer. I was going to have a coffee, but I thought I won't go to sleep.
Mate, well, I share. I'm just having a coffee now, so share that. Mate, it's wicked to finally talk to you. I think we've been in each other's worlds since Eddie brought us on board that T-World collection, which was in 2012. So a big 8 years ago.
Bloody hell.
Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, that was
I've got a sweat on. I had the dog out for a walk, and I just noticed like I was about half an hour walk away from home, and I was like 15 minutes away, so I've had to run straight back into here. Mate, but yeah, so it's mate, I know we mentioned it in the Instagram post, but you're a legend, man. You're an absolute legend in the game. Like longevity, like you've been smashing it for a long time. When did you actually first get started as a career, I guess?
Probably, I'm 56 now, so probably when I was in my sort of early to mid 20s, I was working in a screen printing place that was near where I lived, and I used to have access to the dark room because it was pre-digital and stuff, so I had access to bromide cameras and an art department and everything. So I started doing a lot of stuff for bands. I was seeing lots of bands and things like that, and started doing a lot of work like that. And I'd always drawn and things like that. I was working in the art department because I did these horrible tourist T-shirts for them with little things like that. But I started getting my own kind of work around that time, probably when I was about 25 or so. So yeah, it's like 30 years, I guess. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, because that's like a heck of a career already, and from what I've experienced, like I've had a career of like 20 years, so it's a little dent on that. But there's not a lot of people that manage to do something at the start of their career that they love, be it illustration or design, and then don't get dragged off down like different avenues and different paths, or end up getting swallowed by like a bigger machine.
Yeah.
So that's rad that you've been able to do that for so long, man, and still clearly love it. Like the work that you create is just, it blows my mind. And you can tell like you've come from that start of having to prep artwork, I guess, for screen printing. Like that's one of the things that's just instantly recognizable to me, like as well as the content of your pieces.
Yeah, like I think a lot of it has to do with lifestyle and what you like. I think when people sort of get sucked down that other tube, it's probably because they're thinking about, you know, starting a family and having a house. And I've got a family and stuff, but I've never bought a house, and I've never, you know, I've always just done what I wanted to do, and, you know, had a studio near the beach and surfed and things. So I've never made smart career decisions.
Yeah,
They've been fun ones.
mate, very, very much like me. Like
Yeah.
I'm 41 now. Like rent a property, never owned
Mm.
anywhere. Don't make a lot of money, but just love what I do, man.
Yeah.
And there's a
So,
lot to be said for that.
yeah, yeah.
So, I'm guessing, like, growing up, like, you're from Manly, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
And that is like, is that a this like a suburb of Sydney, or is it
Yeah,
just
it's
outside
kind of
there?
like there's the city in Sydney, and then there's the northern beaches, which you know, if you go directly east, you'll go to Bondi, and then there's the harbour, and then you have the northern beaches further up. And I actually grew up in Mossman, which is on the harbour sort of thing. But
Yeah.
then, and you know, I started surfing when I was 12 or something, and then just moved it to
Wow.
Manly when I was like 18.
Incredible. Yeah, that must have been like a hell of a kind of teenage years, being able to surf. Like, I'm guessing like from us English people, what we're told, like the weather in Sydney is just killer, like all year round, isn't it?
Yeah, it gets cold, and you know, in winter it's not. You're wearing wetsuits and rugged up and things in winter, and
Yeah.
you know there's wet spells through the time. But yeah, in general, yeah, it's a pretty nice climate. Yes, yeah,
Not like that was obviously, like, as a kid I was into like surfing and music and all that sort of American culture, but surfing was something that we never got into up here. And we've got
yeah,
a beach probably only like a 25-minute drive away, but I think it's the fact that the water temperature is like probably like 5 degrees all year
yeah,
round, puts a
yeah. I'm
lot of
not good
people
with
off.
cold water, but I do notice there is a lot of surfers these days in. I guess they've always been there, but you hear more about them, you know, in Ireland and Europe and places where it is cold. And yeah, I guess just the culture's spread out more in the time I've been surfing. So,
Mad. So how much did the surfing culture have like an influence on your early work?
a fair bit, because I've got an older brother that's 5 years older than me, and he used to get a lot of American magazines, and that was where I first saw Jim Phillips and Rick Griffin and a lot of Californian sort of art that I really liked and influenced me. And then in Australia, there was Surf Mags, and there was a great comic called Captain Good Vibes in Tracks magazine. So a lot of that influenced me as a kid. And, you know, you'd sit in school drawing waves and things. But
Yeah.
I guess, you know, I also played footy, rugby, and I, you know, liked music all my life too. So it's, you know, I wouldn't term myself any one particular thing. I
No.
skateboarded a lot too, and did lots of things. So I think you kind of get thrown in that basket of you know, that sort of surfing or skate culture thing. But
Yeah.
you know, that I wouldn't really, you know, I guess I come from that background, but you know, yeah,
It's all been like a melting pot of influences from
yeah.
different sort of
Yeah,
cultures.
cartoons and comics and movies are just as important to me as those
Yeah,
things. So yeah,
that's it. You can tell from like a lot of the stuff that you do for fun is just the comic book seems to be a big thing, like the quirky characters and like
yeah,
the influences to things like Mad Magazine, I guess,
yeah,
and stuff like that. Like your work's always got like a humorous side to it, hasn't it? It always makes people smile. Like, even though it's quite, like, you see the Disney piece behind us that we did for like
yeah,
the Seven Deadly Sins collection. Like, whenever I wear that, people see it, they're like, "What the fuck is that?" And they're like, "Oh yeah."
yeah,
It's always a talking point, isn't it? Like
yeah.
your work.
I think, you know, you want to. I never can take myself too seriously. I was watching Dan Mumford's thing, and he comes from a fairly similar background. The chat that you had with him,
Yeah.
because I've loved him. I've been watching him, and just like seeing those guys, seeing the similarities in things, you know, his background with music and things, how it was funny how, you know, people see met that metalhead that was sort of like, I expected you to be more metal, you know,
Yeah.
and stuff. I think when I
Fighting
meet people, they're like, I expected you to be younger. But yeah, I just think you've got to be funny and have fun with stuff. I can't take things too seriously when things are really deadly earnest around, you know, music or you know, fun culture things. It's kind of like, you know, you can't take yourself too seriously. So I guess it comes from that. Yeah.
Mate, you mentioned you've got a family. You've got 2 boys, is that right?
Yeah, I got one boy who's 15 and the other's 12.
Oh, perfect ages, man. What
Yeah.
do they think of your work then?
I don't know. I guess they've just grown up with it and stuff. We were talking the other day about how, you know, with music, they've always gone to music festivals and sat side of stage and seen really good bands, but to them it's nothing, and they don't really care. And I think in a way, you know, and they're not overly into surfing or art or anything I'm into either. I think it's, yeah, you know, when it's the same as when I was growing up, you know, my dad was a first grade cricketer and rugby player,
Oh, wow.
but I never, you know, by the time I was 15, I'd stopped doing all of that and was doing other things, I think. So I kind of see that a bit in my kids and don't try to push them down the thing, you know, of trying to do this. The more you force them to do stuff, the less they like it. So yeah, but no, they're both fun, and they both come. We go to the beach and have heaps of fun, and you know, my youngest one draws quite a fair bit and stuff, and he's into it. But yeah, it's just, you know,
It's that kind of dynamic when someone comes from like a creative parents always kind of interests me, because that's kind of how I got into design as a kid. Like in a different way, my dad was into he worked for years designing kitchens, so it was doing all, you know, the technical drawings, like the top down, and that shit used to, like, it wasn't like super creative work, but I'd just seeing him like create this world, albeit a kitchen, from nothing, got me into wanting to like draw stuff. But I ended up drawing like football kits and like stuff that excited me. But like, we did the chat with Travis like over in Melbourne a few weeks ago, and he was kind of saying the same thing. Like his kids, they've always known him as being like a dad that does illustration for a work. So it's kind of not, it's just what you're used to, isn't
it? Is. Yeah, I was watching him talk about that and thinking the same thing. Yeah. But my dad was creative. He was a good painter and a good drawer, and I have grandparents that were. But I think in those days it was just something you did. He was an accountant all his life, you know.
Yeah.
But he was quite a good painter and drawer. I've got a book that he bought when he was 17 that's called Fun with a Pencil, this really fantastic sort of American how to draw book from the 1940s, which is epic and stuff, which he bought, you know, when he was 17 or 18 sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think people followed it in those days, you know, like, you know, you be an accountant. I just, you know, figure I can do this, so I'll do it.
Yeah. That's true. Like back then, it was about, I guess, what you could do to keep food in your kids' bellies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I say, my dad was doing the sort of technical drawings, but now I think about it, he was always doing like creative stuff, like paintings, like oil paintings and stuff like that. So it's it was different times. So like, when can you remember, like, what was the first moment, like, and I've asked a few people this question, but what was the first moment when you realized, like, fuck, I can make a living, like, doing the sort of drawing, the sort of artwork that I love doing?
Yeah.
Vividly one point.
I don't know if there was any one point. It was a pretty slow burn for me because like I said, I had access to an art department to do artwork, and I was hanging around a lot of bands, and it was kind of like the late 80s, early 90s when, you know, Nirvana broke in America, and I started getting work with promoters and bigger record companies, and I was in a band and we got signed to a bigger label. And so I kind of over time started doing a lot of work for bands and music, and then that kind of bled into work with editorial for magazines and things like that. So, you know, was it Travis as well that was saying, you know, about growing up to be a man? I still don't feel like I've grown up yet. You know, when I grow up, I'll probably get a real job. But, you know, for now,
cool what you're doing.
Yeah.
But, that's the stuff I cut. Like, as I say, I wasn't really exposed to like the surf culture as a kid in the skate culture in a way that Americans and But when I first stumbled across your work, like I was blown away by it. Like I loved like the use of color, but the how stuff was almost set up for screen printing with the thick black lines and your use of like half tones for shading and stuff.
Yeah.
Then I started looking more into your work and then seeing that you'd done stuff for like Mambo and things like that, which were like when I did first start finding out about that surf culture, like was when probably as a teenager, and kids in the northeast of England would go on holiday to Cornwall, which was like the south of England, and the weather's a little bit nicer, and they have surfing down there, and they all come back with these like Fat Willie's Surf Shack t-shirts on.
Yeah.
And that was classic, and that had me starting to look into it then, and looking into seeing like Point Break. That was a big part of like childhood. But then just seeing brands like Mambo, like how did that come about working for those guys?
They were sort of their real heyday. Like Travis was saying, the history of Mambo is fantastic because they were a company that had really great artists working for them as a collective.
Yeah.
And the model that it worked under really worked well at the time. But around that time, I did approach them, and that was probably when I was in punk bands and thing as a kid. And I approached them at that time, but they told me my work was too derivative, probably because I was very influenced by Californian stuff, which is probably a fair call. But I kind of, I think I started working for them. They sort of, the original owner sold them, and then they were owned by a large multinational, and then some guys from around Manly bought into them, and then Wayne Golding, that used to be one of the original guys, did some headhunting for them, and he got in touch with me, and that was probably over 10 years ago now. So I think I'm probably their longest standing artist of their sort of modern era that they have now. But yeah, they've just got a great history, and you know, it's a good brand for me. It's a really good just good bread and butter, fun to work with. Always been a good crew that works there. They just opened a wave pool sort of you know, wave park down in Melbourne, and they did a partnership with them, so we got to do some murals and surf down there, and they had a big promo just before all the corona started. So that was awesome. Yeah.
I'll have to look into that then. Like I'm hopefully once the world like unlocks again, I've decided I'm just gonna get like a little fucking credit card and just come back to Australia. Like I've only been there once and went to Melbourne. And I tried for one moment, like in the 3 weeks I was there, I tried to plan a visit to come over to Sydney, like see Dale and Benny and like you guys. It would have been awesome, but it just never happened. And I want to come and experience that in the future. Just seeing Sydney, like it looks like such an incredible city. I know whenever I chat to like all the artists and friends that I've got in Melbourne, they're always like, nah, fuck Sydney. Sydney's rubbish. Like Melbourne's where it's at.
It is kind of, Melbourne is like creatively, you know, I'm happy to concede that and stuff, but I don't, I have to be careful what I say, I guess. I don't think I could live there, you know, really. I've grown up in the culture of Sydney, and Sydney's more of a I couldn't give a shit and don't care kind of place, where Melbourne's a bit more inward looking. Everyone dresses black and they're very earnest and stuff. Sydney just couldn't give a shit, you know. I don't care what you're doing, you know. So it's a bit more up its ass, you know. People say that. That's probably true. So yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I need to experience it. I saw today. I think they're opening the beaches up again, aren't they, in Sydney?
Yeah, well, we're lucky. Up on the northern beaches, never actually got closed, which was really lucky, because in New Zealand and California and everywhere around the world was closed. So it was pretty lucky around where we live. And you know, you'd go down the beach and they'd have police around and people saying, you know, over the loudspeakers just saying to get in the water, swim, surf, do whatever you're doing, and then get out and go home, sort of thing. And so as long as everyone did that, then it worked. And I think that's what helped the city beaches open, because I think also it was pushing crowds onto other beaches and making it dangerous. But it's crazy, you know. Like hopefully it's all gone down now. Yeah.
Well, that's the hard thing, isn't it? If you live in a town which is close to the coast, like I've only experienced it probably like the 4 years of being back in Newcastle, but I'm at the coast like 3 or 4 times a week. Like, just drive over there, but I love it, and I've really missed it like the last 6 weeks. Like terribly, to the point
Yeah.
where I was quitting it last week and just had a little sneaky drive, like
Yeah.
way up the coast, find like a little spot where there was nobody there and just see the sea and listen to the sea. It's like so calming.
Yeah, it is. It's lucky. I mean, it is. And in this sort of time, it's good for everyone's mental health to be able to get out. And you know, there are a lot of people that are sort of pretty arrogant and think they own it all and stuff, but you can't blame anyone for wanting to get down to the beach. You know, it's like, you know, and so it seems like it's all calmed down now, which is good. And it's coming into winter here as well, which is good. So we had a bad summer with like heaps of, there was, even though there weren't fires around Sydney, there was lots of smoke and the air was terrible, and it was just a really bad summer. So the sort of autumn that we've just had's been really nice weather and that, and so that's what drove people to the beaches and created that. Yeah.
So it looks like Australia's had a hard time. I did see with all the bushfires in Melbourne that the smoke was like travelling across the country, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was horrible. I mean, you know, the city where we are was just bad air quality, but in, you know, regional areas along the coast, down the coast and stuff, terrible. And, you know, now with what's happening, you know, the story's moved on, so it must be heavy for those people. Yeah.
Mad. Mad. Yeah, it's mad times. Just not too much to be said about that. Mate, well, like in terms of your work, like I always, like when I think of Ben Brown, I always think of like brands and bands. Like that's, to me, that just sums up like the bulk of your work that I love. Is there any industries that you've wanted to work in but you haven't had a chance yet? I know we worked together on that video game a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. I not really. I guess watching all Dan and Chris Malbon and guys like that talking about movie stuff, I wouldn't mind doing some things like that. I've never done any movie things, but having said that, it's kind of a bit like Dan was saying, you know, there's kind of, everyone's done everything for every poster you could imagine. It's kind of like that's probably been and gone, you know, it was probably happening a while ago. And in the same sense with, like, you know, it was funny listening to you and Travis talk about street art and murals and things like that too. Now that in a way, it's not been and gone, but just the gentrification of it, and you know how cultures move and stuff. I think it's underground crazy heyday's gone, and it's moving on to something else and stuff. So I don't know. I always just crash along, and I don't have any real plan. That's what's been interesting about watching your chats with the other guys, how organized people seem to be. I'm like, holy shit, you know, wow, I'm not like that at all. I'm just want to have a full roster of work, and then I don't know what I'm doing. A lot of it, heaps of the work I was doing was sort of event based. I was doing a few things like some posters for festivals in America and things like that, at events here, and everything just fell away once everything started shutting down. So I still have some bits and pieces to get by with for the time being now, but it is like, you know, a reset sort of time, I guess, sort of work on your website and get some plans for some other things. So I might have a chance to plan some ideas, but in general, I don't know. There's no real sort of things that I think I'd want to do. I just, you know, something pops up and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I'll give that a go.
That's it. 'Cause it's like you've had like a few exhibitions in the last few years as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Like there was what was it called? The one with basically like all the female pop stars.
Oh yeah.
Like Debbie Harry and
the Queens of Noise. Yeah, that was a nod to a band like the Runaways. That was Joan Jett's band, a '70s all-girl band from LA. That was one of their records. But I loved them as just, I remember being a kid and seeing them and being like, what? And then, you know, when I'm older and I sort of rediscovered them, they sound fantastic, you know, so there was that I did, and that was just kind of a thing. I always had a thing for girls in rock bands and stuff, because it's a pretty male-dominated field and stuff. So when you do get girls that rise to the top of it and stuff, then they're normally pretty feisty characters.
It's like, it's just powerful, isn't it? Seeing like women in like normally male-dominated environments, like smashing it. Like I stumbled across a couple of months ago. I can't remember her name. She's a Brazilian lady who's a skateboarder, something like Lita.
Oh,
she's just fucking smashing it, and it's awesome. Like no fear.
I
Doing
think I've seen
mad
her.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
love
it's just,
things like that. And you know, there's so many girls surfing these days, which is kind of cool too. The funny thing of a lot of guys I know is that out of young kids, there seems to be more girls surfing than boys. You know, the boys are just like, oh, I couldn't be bothered, you know. And we were just laughing the other afternoon. I was watching it with some friends, just going, there'd just be more girls surfing in 20 years than boys, which, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's good. So, yeah, I just, yeah, but back to that, that was just a sort of, that was a small exhibition in Melbourne that was just to, yeah, just a sort of thing to those girls. And then I did one last year, towards the end of last year. I had an exhibition in Sydney in Paddington that was just all rock posters that I'd done.
Yeah.
So that was really cool because they were all screen prints and they were all, you know, original posters, and the gallery had a framing sort of system. So it meant I didn't have to get everything framed. I had 50 pieces in there, which was great. And that was cool to do. And before that, I did some collaborations with some friends, a guy from Melbourne, Steve Cohen, Mongo. That was probably 2 or 3 years ago now. And then Kentaro Yoshida, another friend from Sydney.
that Kentaro stuff. That was like 2017, wasn't it? With you both delving into each other's worlds, and they're just
it was Rumble. We'd sit in the pub, and because we both love having a beer, and we'd sit in the pub with iPads and draw these things with the old blokes having a bet and a punt over here, and they'd just be looking over at us thinking, what the fuck are those guys doing? We're just having beers, and then we'd sort of draw half of each other's picture, and it was called Rumble. Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah.
Is there any artist out there that you'd love to collaborate with in the future? Because that's something you don't really see a lot of artists doing, like doing stuff like you did with Kentaro, where you both work on a piece together.
Yeah. Those two guys, really, both of them. Like Steve, the guy in Melbourne, he runs a really tight screen printing outfit, does a lot of merch for bands and things, but he's a really great artist himself. That was great working with him because he's, you know, 25, 26, plays in heaps of bands, really good drawer. And Kentaro's the same. He's probably 30 or mid-30s, I'm not sure. But I kind of felt like I was riding their coattails in a way, you know, because they were just these sort of groovy happening guys. And it was kind of as if, you know, they were stoked to be doing something with me. But they were like, no, I'm coming on your coattails. I think most of the people at the show are your mates, not mine. All my friends are at home watching telly with their kids.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know that there's anyone, again, you know, like when things just pop up, it's not something that I kind of think about, but I'd love to do something like that again. Especially the one with Kentaro was really sort of interactive, crashing into each other's. We are doing a sort of a small mural in Manly soon at a friend's surf shop together, and that'll be fun. But yeah, doing that sort of thing where you really are collaborating is really fun. Yeah.
Oh, exciting, man. Mate, just thinking about it and going back to that at the Queens of Noise and just seeing the pieces that are behind this. Like when did this style for like experimenting with like the real clean half and half bodies come from, like the decomposing sort of thing?
Yeah.
Can you remember when you first started messing around with that?
That sort of I've got an agency here on the Northern Beaches called The Drawing Arm, which have their own design studio, and that's the National Grid, and they've always been that. And I had a few exhibitions in there. They used to run these really great exhibitions, and we'd have, you know, bands playing in the car park and things like that. And they used to do some great shows. So that was probably about 2014 sort of thing, I think. I'm not sure. But I started doing I was doing a show for them. I started doing some pieces. I'd been working up to some pieces where I was getting things like, you know, say Uncle Sam or Grace Jones and things like that, and really recognizable pop culture icons, and screwing around with them and turning them into zombies. But they were so sort of burnt into the culture that people knew what they were.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, I probably ran out of things that were recognizable enough or something. I don't know. But somewhere along the way, I sort of did that half-face thing. And then it kind of was good for a while. But then, you know, people asked me to do it all the time. And it was kind of a shtick. And I was like, oh, I'm a bit over it. And I did come back to it for that show, that Queens of Noise one, just because I knew people liked it, and that was a pretty quick. There was only 6 pieces in that. That was in Outre Gallery in Melbourne, and that was just called Small Wall, and it was just six pieces that I did because you've just got a small wall space to fill. Right. So I did that to return to it, but I've kind of gone off it. And actually, when I did a poster for Queens of the Stone Age when they toured here in 2018, and the guy that was the promoter doing that said, could you do that? And I was thinking, oh, it only really works for real, you know, full-on rock star. But, oh, Josh Homme's pretty full-on rock star, actually. And I did it for that, and that worked out really well. That's probably one of my favourite posters, actually, because I love the band, and the image just seemed to really work with him and stuff, too. Yeah. And it was, you know, really nicely printed in the States and stuff, too. So
was that the one when they were doing, like, holographic sort of variants? Where they were printing on
sort of because the guys it's the same guys that Travis was doing them with was Mr. T-Shirt is like the merchandise guys in the States that do it. This job wasn't through them, but they I did some stuff for them in 2009 when Pearl Jam toured here. I loved how you didn't know who Ed Vedder was too.
Yeah, man.
Chops. So, oh, is that who he is? Is the you know, so anyway, I did 3 posters for them in 2009 when they toured here, and I didn't get the whole thing of getting the posters from them. They say, you know, we'll give you 100 posters or 200 posters, you sell them. And stuff, and I didn't really understand that then. I was just like, oh, no, just give me some cash, and just took the cash. But then I think it was probably Travis who hooked me back up with them a few years ago, and I started getting the posters and selling them. And like Travis said, the following for Ed Vedder and Pearl Jam is just rabid. It's just so mad, you know, like. So it's a real earner. It's a really good job if you can land doing those ones. Like the last one I did for Pearl Jam was one that Dan did as well for some shows they did in the States, and it was just mental. I think I had 400 posters for that, and they sold out in 15 minutes online just straight away. And then I was the mail boy for the next month after that. That's the only thing, it just kills you mailing it out. Is that my wife loves it because she's that sort of person that loves being organised. I hate it. I'm just like so glad to see the last of them.
Oh, mate, I can't. Like, I think the most orders that I've ever racked up when I've had a list of pre-orders or whatever has been like probably about 100, and it's just daunting, isn't it? Like you're packing them, then you're looking, and it's not going down very much. And 400.
It just kills you, and it's sort of like you're stoked that they're all gone, but now we got to send them out. but those guys, they do it as a thing where they'll have say 100 posters, and then they'll have 20 or 50 that are on that foil, that reflective foil, and they're the variant that people will really, collectors again really want to get. So it's a pretty fun culture. It's pretty funny. I'm not a huge fan of the foils either. I prefer them on just normal stock, except that Queens of the Stone Age one worked well because for some reason his eyes made him look really out of it and crazy, and that's how he is in real life. So it kind of worked.
Yeah, it really surprised me that whole the creating artwork for different parts of different cities of gigs, and it's kind of what I tried to do a few years ago. I did like an AnyForty world tour. Where I was getting artists from different cities to do a tour specific t-shirt. Yeah. But I like that idea, like that these guys have got such massive fan bases that people at the shows will want to buy them, but then people at home will want to collect them. People that have never, like I've got the 2 like here, like it's a fucking mess. But I've got 2 of Travis's ones there behind all the boxes of shit. Oh, that's man, sorry, where is it there? The Blink 182.
Well, like my studio, mate.
Yeah, mate. Bomb site.
Yeah, they do. They just have such a big fan base that they can, and I guess I think rock posters have kind of gone in waves too. In the late 60s, when I was talking earlier about those surf magazines and those artists that were working in them, they were part of that San Francisco late 60s, you know, the Summer of Love sort of rock posters. And I think that's the first wave. And then in the 90s, there was kind of a second wave with Coop and Frank Kozik and guys like that. And then I think, you know, in the recent 5-10 years, there's probably, with the drop in revenue from having your music streamed and not sold, then there's much more emphasis on merchandise and stuff, and just, you know, the collector culture of people today. So yeah, you get people that are so angry that they didn't get the poster at the show, and then, you know, they didn't get the poster from you, and they're sending you angry emails about bots bought all your posters.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't care as long as the bots paid money.
Hey, that's weird. Like, talking about how like the music industry so obviously it's big because the guys are losing revenue from streaming, so they're having to go out and gig a lot. That's how they're earning their income. But then artists like yourself and Travis are earning income by doing posters for these shows. Like, that's going to be a massive hit for the rest of the year, because I don't think this year we'll see like any more gigs.
No. I'd done a poster for Metallica for October last year, and then James Hetfield, their singer, went into rehab, and so that tour got cancelled. That was like, oh, that's cancelled. Then I was working on one for Florida for a big festival they were headlining, and then coronavirus cancelled. I was like, note to self, just don't do any Metallica stuff. I got some spare artwork.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, a lot of event stuff that and stuff, and I love going to see them, and they remind me of me when we were younger, and, you know, they just smash it and have a really good time. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be that age. You know, I'm me. I haven't got my work, but I can still do other work and sit at home, and I don't mind hanging at home so much with the kids. We've kind of had a good time being in isolation, actually. My wife's an airline pilot, so she got laid off, which was a real bummer, but we've all spent so much time together that it's like, it's been quite cool. We're getting a little bit sick of it now.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. But I feel sorry for bands and the you know, the younger people that are in that sort of culture that, you know, and I guess artists too, that like to be out and working more on stuff. Like I said, I've always been this way anyway. Even when I was younger, I'd much rather just stay in my studio than get out. Unless we were going out to drink beer, I couldn't give a shit.
I think it'll be interesting to see how some people react to it. It might create like a whole new way of bringing money in, kind of like when, like you say, when streaming came in and Napster and all that started stealing money out of people's pockets. There'll be some people out there that get quite inventive and work out a way of doing it. Like I saw this is I'm just a hip hop kid.
Yeah.
What's it called? There's like an English rocker called Frank.
I think I know who you mean, actually. It's on one of the posters I did.
Yeah, he's
Frank. Is it Frank Turner? Is it?
Yeah,
Frank? Yeah. He's on the Blink-182 poster behind me. He was on TV on the weekend, and he said he's been doing live stream concerts like all the time, and I think he's either earning money like ad revenue, or people are paying to watch them, and then he's given all that money to the people that would normally work on the tours with him, like the Roadies. So he's keeping them like all employed. While they're not able to work, which is fucking brilliant, really. Yeah, well, there's a lot of that happening here too. There's been Instagram ones where it goes from like, there's a thing called Isolade, which is like, you know, AID, but that's all really young up and coming people just at home with Instagram Live like this, just in that they put out the roster, and it goes from like, you know, 1 in the Arvo till midnight, like a festival each weekend, and they've been going every weekend since it started. And then there was another one which I forgot the name of, but it was just a well well put together one that was on YouTube. And then even there's a mainstream one here because on the weekend it was like Anzac Day, which is like Remembrance Day.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, they had a big sort of one that was on TV of everyone just sort of, you know, playing from their palatial home studios in their mansion.
Yeah.
you go from the kids that are on Instagram Live to the rock stars from 40 years ago in their home studios by the beach.
Yeah, premium luxury living life. Yeah, that's the funny thing that's come out of this that I've noticed. There's people just trapped in their normal houses, and then you've got like all these celebrities and sports people telling people to like, you've got to stay at home. Like you can't stay at home.
We're all in it together. No, I don't think I'm like you, actually.
As they're doing like 100 laps in their in-house swimming pool.
Yeah, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see the sorts of things that do come out of it. Just for, I think, just the way that, like Travis was talking about, the hits that budgets took, you know, back last time there was a recession 10 years ago, and see what'll happen. Because I had a lot of unpaid work. I was doing a really big bunch of work for a large restaurant chain, and I made a lot of money by then, and I don't know when I'm going to see that. That's through an agency, so hopefully something will happen with that. But just with the general thing of how people will, you know, like with budgets being cut and how people will work, and you know, you probably got to hustle more. I'm never one of those people that's like, you know, I always find it funny how people are like, coffee, wake up, coffee, hustle, repeat, all that sort of thing. I'm like, fuck that. I'd much rather go to the beach and draw when I've got some spare time and hopefully get some money.
Yeah, mate, that's
So I think I'm going to have to be the latter in the future. Yeah.
You know what? Like I was talking to a friend about that the other day, and like I launched AnyForty originally in 2008, and that was like at the height of like when everything last went proper tits up.
Yeah.
And I managed to grow a business. Like I only invested like a couple of £100, and I managed to grow it. I ended up getting stock like in stores like all around the world, and it grew a business in times when they were meant to be tough.
Yeah,
So
have you heard of the Critical Slide Society? It's like a really cool label out. It's one of the original Mambo artists, this guy Jim Mitchell.
Oh,
and I think it's called the Critical Slide Society.
Cool, I'll have a look at that.
DCSS, I think it is. And they're a great brand. They're probably one of the most happening brands from out here in the last few years. And he's the same story, started at the same time as you, and built the brand through the, you know, rebuilding of after the last sort of thing. I should say too that I've got my Jimmy, just stand up for it, my Jimmy Royal Travis on. Travis used to kip me out, and I used to just wear it everywhere. But I love Jimmy Royal, and we had some of his Mr. stuff too back in the day. But it's probably a thing, like you're saying. Someone told me that story the other day about Jim and the Critical Slide Society, how it sort of was, you know, started when things were bad and grew. And it's like you were saying, it is probably the time to do something. I suppose there's motivation. In a way, you know, like things, I guess things just go in cycles, you know, and that whole boom bust we live in. Not that this was an economic boom or bust. This was just a, you know, whatever it was. Bust.
Nature, isn't it? Yeah. Some motherfucker eating a bat.
Exactly.
Well done.
Yeah. But,
I'll tell you what, mate, we could talk for ages. 45 minutes on now.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of action going on in the comments. So let's open it up for people to ask you some questions, man.
Sure.
Right. Right. So someone here is the Miss Mocky. Can you answer a question, please? What's the process of gig posters? Do you approach a band with ideas, or do they approach you? And then roughly, how long's the process from process to print?
Yeah. Well, on a large scale, like the ones we were talking about there, you would be working for a promoter. It's rarely the band. It's not like, you know, a rock star got in touch with you and asked you to do a poster. It's the merchandise company or the management. But it sort of all probably comes about from hanging around a scene that you love. I always believe that you've really got to love things to do it well. You know, you can't. sort of just step in and think I'm going to do this. It's sort of got to have some organic kind of beginning. So, you know, just from being around what your local scene is, or some friends doing some flyers for your friends, some bands, like free stuff, T-shirts and things, and being involved with that sort of scene that was how I got going with stuff like that. And I was lucky because I was around when I was young, when there was a real boom in that sort of, things went from, you know, underground stuff to mainstream stuff. But I think just, doing it that way, and just getting to know people, whether it's promoters, bands or whatever, and hitting them up. And then, the process is just, generally there's not a brief like those guys we were talking about. A Pearl Jam brief will be something like, nothing political, don't use pink, and that's it.
And that's it, run away.
Yeah. And, you know, keep it to 5, 6 colours sort of thing. And you know, it's, I guess too, like Travis was saying as well, if you're doing something for free, then there shouldn't be too much of a brief as well. And that's how you get really creative stuff too, is by, you know, once management that doesn't really, you know, says, oh, could we have, like, you know, the sun in the background and maybe a red car doing this over here, the whole thing's just gone to shit. You just got to let the designer go from.
Mate, that's what I love about doing AnyForty. Like, even get kind of lucky on a lot of client projects as well. But I obviously work with guys like you because I like your style of work and the sort of work you create. So never tend to like art direct it too much.
No.
If you give them, if the artist can run wild and do something that they want to do, like, you get the best work like every minute of the day, don't you?
Yeah, I agree.
We've got another quick question here, and this is an interesting one. So it's our guy Norma Studio. He's in Tassie, and he's saying, how are you able to use pop culture characters without copyright?
I've been sued. That's why I don't own a house. No, it's an interesting question. It's good because talking about Eddie Zammit too, like we were earlier, or like you and Travis were. Eddie's been a really good influence on my career as well. Got me into a lot of cool things. We used to speak about it a lot, and there was things like that. There are some famous court cases which are too much to go into, but I think by using some companies will be lenient, like The Simpsons and perhaps Disney to a point, and some things like that. If you're not really being derogatory, you know, really screwing with it in a bad way, which is often funny, and that's probably going to be underground if you're doing that. But if you're using pop culture things, that some big companies like that will be happy to see that their thing is in the culture, ingrained in the culture, that they might let it ride. And then other things, I think you do have to be careful in a way, because I've done a lot of, you know, dead sort of celebrities and things like that, and I've never been approached, touch wood, by any of their estates or anything, but there's always that possibility, which I guess would just be a cease and desist, because it's not like, you know, you've made loads of money. But I don't know, it's an interesting one. You just sort of do it.
Like the stuff. That's it. That's the stuff we've done together, and like, I think over the 12 years of doing AnyForty, I've released copyrighted characters and stuff.
Well, honestly, it was Disney that we did, wasn't it, on the 7 Deadly Sins? I think, I ripped off the Disney, classic Disney logo and everything for it.
That's banger.
Double Disney. Instead of dreams are made, it's where nightmares are made, or something.
Mate, but that's it, isn't it? Like, I think the worst that's going to happen is you just get a cease and desist, tell it to stop doing it. Yeah, and that's what I've always thought. I did hear a horror story once of a company when I used to live in Bath, which is in the southwest. They made some T-shirts saying the southwest, and it was done in like the North Face style. And they were selling them for like fucking years, probably like 5 or 6 years. And the North Face were watching them, just letting them rack their sales up, and then sent them an invoice saying, right, we need like £5 for every T-shirt you sold with that on. And
we've spent the money already.
Well spent the money.
Oh, that'd suck.
But right, So we've got 10 minutes left, mate. So we'll just bang through some more questions. So we've got
Yeah.
Melbs, who's popped up. Melbs is a massive fan of yours.
Hey,
He
Chris.
said, how many sketchbooks do you get through in a year? And have you ever thought about doing a book?
I kind of don't keep sketchbooks, actually. I sort of develop ideas. I've gone, it's like Dan Mumford was saying, I've kind of gone right over to tablets. I still draw on paper sometimes. So yeah, I've got sketchbooks that have got like pictures of the harbour and things in them. A while ago, I started just drawing on my knees and trying to do something completely different. And yeah, it was funny how you guys were talking about, you know, people turning to art when they're older. I guess that must be about me at this age. But yeah, I don't have sketchbooks so much. I have a lot of rough drawings and things that I keep. But I have thought about a book. I've got a friend who's an art director that made a really good book with a well-known rock photographer from out here, and they did two really good books, and he toured it and everything. But we spoke about doing a book. I don't know. I'd need a bit, probably, you know, if the lockdown goes for ages, there's something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mate, there's I'm a massive fan of books, artist books. I've got just shelves and shelves of books.
No,
and it's
me
just
too.
something that people will buy and people will collect. I could see like a book from me doing incredibly well, man.
Yeah, I'd like
got,
to.
got my money waiting. Right, we've got a Rick Wernick. I don't know how to say his name.
Oh, yeah, I know Rick. He's our Brazilian friend. We used to work together at a t-shirt factory years ago.
Oh, snap. What, when you were doing the tourist t-shirts?
Yeah, at that place. He was out from Brazil. That'd be like 25, 30 years ago. Hey, Rick.
Oh, what legends.
Yeah.
So he's asking you about your days at Goose's drawing koalas.
Yeah, they were funny days. Well, they were good for me when I was a kid too, because I used to get paid in cash. And I think it was sort of the late 80s, and I used to get like $200 cash a day to just draw, which was a lot then, probably like getting $500 a day now. And I used to just go in a few days a week and draw stupid koalas. And then he would put his wife's name on them. And she would pretend she'd drawn them. She was like, oh, yeah, you know. I was like, oh, it's okay, you can have that.
Mad.
Yeah, but, you know, they were good times.
All right, let's have a look. I've got a few more like statements rather than questions. So, yeah, Norma Studios back again. Favorite piece that you did with Kentaro?
Oh, I think the piece that we did for the actual show itself was just, the show was called Rumble, and it was just us two fighting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm punching his face off, and he's smoking a cigarette.
Mate, I love his stuff, man. I've dropped him a couple of messages previously, but I've never got a reply back. Dude must be busy.
I'll get him onto you.
Yeah, you'll have to give him a prod.
Yeah.
See if I can afford him.
He's a really funny guy. He's a top guy.
Mate,
I think me and him have done a lot together because we both really love having a beer. Get really on it. We've had some really funny nights doing live paintings and things like that. We did some live painting for Santa Cruz one year for a skateboard thing. It had, just hilarious times. I should stop there, really.
Mate, I've got to get to Australia, man, and have a beer with you guys.
Yeah.
Long overdue. Right, so your man Rick is asking you to what about the Helmand?
That was the band that I used to be in.
Oh.
We stopped playing in 1994, and then we did a reunion thing in 2010 for like a charity that was really fun, that had a whole lot of bands from that era that we played in, and it was good. It was a really good night. And but we probably wouldn't play again really these days. We did a party. It was actually just me with some other friends, because all the other guys in the band live all over Australia now, and we did a covers band of our own band. So we were just like, there was only me. It was the only one left from the band. And it was just a party. That was pretty fun. That was just in January, actually. Yeah.
Wait, one more question. I reckon this is from me. So like the half and half kind of skeletal things, what's the favourite one that you've done? Like me personally, one of the first ones I saw from you was the Spider-Man one that you did for SeaWorld.
Yeah, yeah.
But I still love that the Batman one we did.
Yeah,
It was fucking incredible.
Yeah, I still
like with the bullet holes in his armor. What's your personal favourite one that you've done?
I don't know. When you bring those ones up, I've been such a fan lately of like superhero movies with my kids, and I hadn't really looked at them for. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, yeah, they're cool, aren't they? Those ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like them, and I like the Queens of the Stone Age one because it was just such a nicely screen printed poster.
Yeah.
Like Debbie Harry, I guess, and I don't know. I can never remember stuff that I've done either. Someone will probably show me and I go, oh shit, yeah, that's right.
It's like, you've had some that must have really blown up, because I remember the Amy Winehouse one. I remember seeing that everywhere. And the Queen one at the time as well.
Queen one was funny because Eddie Zammit organised an interview for VNA magazine over there, and that was in that. So it really polarised a lot of Brits. I got a lot of feedback that was just like, this is disgusting. And other ones that were just like, this is the fucking funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I did. When I saw it, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fucking brilliant. I was like, I might message Ben and see if we can buy that and we can run it on a t-shirt. I thought, if she pops her clogs before this comes out, like,
still here, mate. Let's do it.
Yeah, maybe we should. Maybe
we'll wait until she pops off the twig. That'll go down well, wouldn't it?
Maybe me and Ryan Roadkill, we just did it. The one recently with the Queen with the fucking breathing mask. I can't even think what it's called. The big gas mask on.
Yeah.
Myself from the corona. Oh, Eddie's saying here, Vivian from the Young Ones wore it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Eddie organised that actually. Yeah. He was out doing a tour with a band, and we made sure we got him one.
Was that Vivian? Was that Rick Mail?
No, it was Aid Edmondson.
Oh, Aid Edmondson, yeah.
Yeah, and he had like a sort of band that I think I didn't see them. I had some friends that went and see them because like in Sydney, I live on the north side, and too bloody lazy to go over the Harbour Bridge to the south side, which is where everything happens.
Yeah.
Mate,
we've got we're gonna get cut off in like 2 or 3 minutes, but someone here, Cree, is just saying he's the proud owner of the Mickey canvas. He looks at it every day and smiles. Like how great is that, man, knowing that you worked in people's houses, just starting their day with a smile, man.
Stoked. Seems surreal. I forget once you've sold a piece, you forget that it's actually going up on someone's wall. It's weird. Yeah.
Mad. Well, mate, I got the chat we did with Ash the other day. We got cut off before we got a chance to say goodbye. So,
thanks for having us, mate. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Like, and I'm thinking, like, during this lockdown, I've had a lot of time to think about like future plans and projects and stuff. So I've got one or two that are brewing that I'm gonna start contacting people about. So I will be in touch via email soon.
Yeah, that's good. Got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you so much for giving up some of your time on a Tuesday night, and stay safe. And I'll speak to you soon, mate.
You too, Al. Look forward to having a beer with you in person.
Mate.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. I'll see you soon. Yeah.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that one. That was another super fun one. We've got one more coming up on Friday, and that's going to be with Gavin Strange, Jam Factory from Bristol. And then we're going to call at the end of season 1. And we're going to have about a week's break from doing these, and then come back with season 2. So yeah, have a wicked rest of your Tuesday, wherever in the world you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we'll see you soon. Peace!